How's it going today? Today we're going to be talking about credit cards and should you or should you not be using them. I'm on my website right now, Jake Shirley Coaching, and I'm just going to be going through this blog post I wrote, and so you can follow along there or on the screen if you like. So, the question is, should you use credit cards? I just did a couple of quick Google searches before I started this video, and something like 70-80% of Americans have at least one credit card, so you probably have at least one. With another Google search, I found out that the average American carries about a $5,000 to $6,000 credit card balance. So I'll mention that again a little bit later. So maybe you pay off your cards every month. Maybe you think you're playing the game, you're getting rewards, something like that. Maybe you're concerned about building your credit score. You know, people tell you have to have a credit score. You have to have one to buy a house or a car or rent an apartment, something like that. Also, maybe you think you only use your credit card for emergencies. Or maybe you just got one because that's what people told you to do and no one ever told you anything different. So we're going to talk about it. So what I want you to do, at Jake Shirley Coaching, I teach people to question beliefs, to maybe think a little bit differently than what people have been telling them their whole life. I realize that there are different ways to think about things. So people will teach you things and they think that their way is the only way and you should follow their way. Someone else will say something else, and their opinion, they will also have their opinion and their belief, and they think that you should follow their way. I think you should raise your consciousness and your awareness and make your own decisions and come to your own conclusions. And that includes, that's not just about personal finance, but it's about a lot of different areas in life. So we're going to take a look at some of the arguments that people have for credit cards, and we're going to question those because that's what I want to teach you to do in your personal finance life, to question beliefs about personal finance and whether or not the majority opinion is correct and why or why not it is correct or not. So the first argument people might have, people that use credit cards, they like credit cards, they might say, well, I pay it off every month, so what's the big deal? Why is it such a big deal? I pay it off every month, things I'm going to buy anyway, so what's the big deal about it? Well, a credit card uses debt. That's what a credit card is. So I don't know if you think about it that way or not, but that's really what it is. A credit card is actually a really convenient and much too convenient way to take out a small loan. You carry it in your wallet or your purse, and you take it out and use it, but you didn't actually spend money. Now that's the thing about a credit card. You didn't actually pay for whatever it was you bought. The bill for that, what you bought, is going to come later. And people don't really think about this, but it's not something they consciously think about, but because you're not really spending money, you don't feel, when we spend actual money and we see the number in our bank account go down, we feel a little sting for that. It's like an emotional pinch, an emotional shock that people feel when they spend actual money. But at least that was my experience when I used to use credit cards. I don't even use them anymore. I realized that I felt the sting of spending that money at the end of the month when that bill came due, and I was paying for things that I didn't even remember what they were really. I would have to look at the credit card statement to see what I even spent my money on. And because people don't feel this emotional sting when they use a credit card, because, subconsciously they know they're not really spending money yet, they tend to spend more. So you might think, well, I'm only buying things I would buy anyway, but we tend to spend more when we use a credit card. So people tend to spend more, or they buy more than what they need, or they make a purchase earlier than they should because they feel like, I'm putting it on a credit card, I can pay for it right now, or they think I can pay it off in 1 or 2 months. So people do tend, I believe, they tend to spend more when they use a credit card. So you're not actually buying things you would just buy anyway. You're actually buying more, so you're really spending more when you use a credit card. And a credit card is also debt. So when you use a credit card and you keep using it long enough, it becomes a habit like anything else. So using debt and borrowing money becomes a habit. But I would ask you, is that a good habit to have? And my answer would be no. So the next thing people like to say is that they get rewards for things they're going to buy anyway. Well, we already talked about that people tend to spend more with a credit card. And the rewards or the cash back they think they're getting is actually a way in their mind they're just justifying a purchase that maybe they know they shouldn't be making, So let's talk about this rewards thing, and does it actually work for you? If you wanted to get $1,000 cash back, you would have to spend $100,000. I mean, I don't mean to be blunt, but in what universe would that make you rich? I mean, if the goal of my goal, and if your goal is to build wealth, become rich, then spending $100,000 to get $1,000, it's not going to get you there. So using a credit card, using debt becomes a habit, and like anything else, and people use the reward system to justify making a large purchase when they really shouldn't, because they're putting on a credit card, but they use the points to justify it, and they think, well, I'll pay it off in 2 or 3 months, making a payment every month, and 2 or 3 months is paid for, and I don't have the credit card balance anymore. But what if something goes wrong? Because a credit card is using debt, and debt really only works if everything works. And when does everything work perfectly? And the answer is never. All it takes is one unexpected event, and that does happen. Life happens, and then people, they don't make the payment then, and then they might end up with carrying that credit card debt for months or even years. I mean, it just takes something like your transmission in your car going out, or the air conditioner in the middle of summer, or your heat in the middle of winter. Just one unexpected thing, and then you don't pay the card off, or you use the credit card you have to use a card to buy groceries or something like that. Some people say they have a credit card just for emergencies. Well, I don't mean to be rude or anything, but having a credit card for emergencies is an emergency in itself. It's just wrong financially for so many reasons. The first issue is that everyone has a different opinion or definition of what an emergency is. So your definition of an emergency is going to be different from mine, going to be different from the next person's, and everyone else's. So it's really hard to say that, because what the heck is an emergency? Everyone has a different idea of what that even is. I mean, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, your air conditioner goes out in the middle of summer, might think of that as an emergency to you, and you reach for the credit card. But if that happens to someone else and who has no debt and a cash emergency fund, they just pay for their air conditioner to be fixed, and they move on with life. Because it's something they planned for. They know that things happen that we kind of expect, but we don't really plan for, and then they just pay for it out of their cash emergency fund, and they move on with life. But if you put that on a credit card, you might be paying that off for a few months, and then it's something else. It just takes something else to happen in the next few months, and then maybe you have to reach for the credit card again, or you don't pay it off as soon as you expect it to, and then something else happens. And I mean, it's really easy. It's scary, kind of, that it just takes a few things to happen in a short period, and then you're in thousands and thousands of debt on a credit card and it can last for years. And I don't mean that to sound pessimistic or negative, but the truth is that bad things happen to everybody, and it rains on everybody. So let's talk about the next one. People think you always hear about the credit score, and I'm seeing commercials now about you sign up for some program and you boost your credit score. I'm always hearing about the credit score. Well, the credit score, just all it does is it predicts how likely you are to pay a loan back on time. That's all it does. It's how good you are paying your loans. That's all it is. So here at Jake Shirley Coaching, I'm going to teach you not to borrow money anymore. So a credit score helps you borrow money. So I'm going to teach you not to borrow money anymore. I don't borrow money anymore, with the possible exception of buying a house someday, but we'll come back to that. I don't care about my credit score, and I didn't always feel that way, but I don't care about it anymore. I once bought a brand new car with payments over a 7-year period, and it was easily my biggest financial mistake. And when I bought the car, the guy, the car salesman said I had a heck of a credit score, which at the time I took that as a compliment, but it's really not. It just means I've been paying off a lot of debt for a long time. That's not going to make anyone wealthy and rich, It just means you've had a lot of debt. You've been paying your debt off on time is all it means. And I'm glad to say that I paid my car loan off early, and I'm never borrowing money on a car again. So for buying this house, now for buying a house, I haven't had personal experience with this yet, but from what I understand, the mortgage company has to do something called manual underwriting, which is what they used to do before they started just looking at your credit score. So they do things like they find out they actually do a little bit of research and put in some effort. They find out if you have a dependable income, if you pay your bills or your rent on time, if you show up to work, if you actually have the money in the bank for a down payment. They have to do a little bit of work instead of just running your credit score. So the short answer, no, you do not need a credit score to buy a house. So to close this out, you were probably just told to get a credit card because that's what everyone else is doing. Well, we already talked about that. Something like 70-80% of Americans have at least one credit card. Well, about the same amount of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I'm not saying that the credit card is causing that to happen, but the credit card is just part of their series of habits and their thinking, and they're using a credit card and they're also living paycheck to paycheck. It's a combination of all their habits that are doing that. That I think there's probably a correlation there. It's their habits and their mindset and their thinking that they're using credit cards, they're using debt, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. Now I would advise you, I'm going to teach people not to do what the majority is doing. Now, if you want to do what the majority is doing, well, you can go get a credit card and you have thousands of dollars in debt. Now, if you want to do what the majority is doing, you can do that, You can make your own choice and do that. You can start living paycheck to paycheck and use a credit card and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm going to teach people at Jake Shirley Coaching not to do that. I'm going to teach people not to do what the majority is doing, not to think like the majority. So if you're still watching, I'm guessing that you want to do something different for your life. Maybe you've been hearing things about like get out of debt, build a cash emergency fund. And the thing is, that you might be working hard for a short period of time, but after that, you can actually start doing the things you really want to do and actually enjoying life instead of just paying off all your debt. You have to make a decision I'm going to do something that's uncomfortable for a short period of time so I can get out of debt. And I'm never going back. I'm not going back into debt. It's been enough years owing people money. Never again. I might get a mortgage payment at some point. I'm not even sure about that, but never again. I'm not going to owe anyone any money ever again. So that's what I'm going to teach you at Jake Shirley Coaching. And if you're using credit cards, I would advise you to stop right now. Cut those things up. Stop using them. Once you get them paid off, you call the company, you have them closed. Don't play their game. You're playing someone else's game. You're making them rich. You're spending. You might think, well, I'm paying it off every month. I'm getting the rewards, but it takes one thing to go wrong, and something always goes wrong. I mean, it rains on everyone. It's going to rain. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be negative, but it just takes one thing to screw up your plan, and then you're going to be mad at your debt. Stop using credit cards. You're playing with fire. So that's what I'm going to teach you at Jake Shirley Coaching. I'm going to teach people get out of debt. Build up a cash emergency fund. For a short period of time, you cut expenses, you work more jobs, you get extra jobs, you work overtime, you start side hustles, build up passive income. You do that for a short time so you can get out of all your debt, and then you find you're actually free after that. It's worth it, I think. So you can get out of credit card debt and all your debt. You just have to decide to do it. And I'm going to encourage people not to follow the majority. If you want to go follow the majority, you can always be in debt and live paycheck to paycheck if you want, but that's not me. So this is Jacob Shirley with Jake Shirley Coaching, and this is my website. My website's up, and you can connect with me on Facebook and Twitter, and here on YouTube. So thanks you for watching.